Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Federico, and in this video I want to demystify some IT terminology, because what I noticed is that in IT we often give for granted that everyone knows certain terms, certain acronyms, but it's not always the case, especially for people just joining the field and they don't know all of these terms, and they'll be a bit overwhelmed by all the amount of information and terms that we use. So for this video I selected certain jargon related to web development and software engineering, so that you can start already with a background of what these terms mean. So if you think that videos like this can be useful for you, if you have certain terms that you would like to have an explanation about, make sure to write it down in the comment section down below and subscribe to be sure that you will not lose any videos that will come in the future. So let's start with the first two terms, that are front-end and back-end. These two terms are used to give a separation of what the application does. So we have on the front end the part that is in charge of interacting with the end user and displaying the data in a way that is useful and easy to use for user navigating our service, our website. While on the back-end side we have all the other part that is related to the business logic, integration with a database or integration with other services, and this often goes hand in hand with the concept of client-server architecture. They are not exactly one-to-one relations, but to simplify we can see as the client, that is your personal computer, the computer with which you end user access the website or the service, we run the front-end code, while on the server side, that means on the remote server, you will have the back-end code. Now this is important to understand, because our goal is to give the smoothest experience as possible to the user. So a good practice is the one of pushing most of the calculation and the really heavy processing on the server side, because it's kind of easy nowadays to scale up the resources of your server, and also it's the only thing you have control of, because you don't know the connection of the user and what kind of computer he has. So if you can push all of the hard work on the server side, it's better for the user. Another advantage is that by separating these concepts and leaving only the presentation layer to the front end, you can potentially use the same backend for different presentation layers. Maybe you have a website, maybe you have a mobile app, maybe you have another application, and they all refer to the same backend, because all the business logic and the access of the data is on that place. And on the other part, on the client side, you only have a different visualization. And this brings me to the next term, that is APIs. So you may have heard this a lot, and it stands for Application Programming Interfaces. And what does it mean in web development? You can see APIs as a contract, as a listing of services that a certain servers allow other machines to interact with. Indeed, APIs are used for machine-to-machine interaction, and there are many kinds of protocols and technologies that you can use for APIs. One of the most common is REST APIs. So REST stands for Representational State Transfer, and it is an architectural style that is based on HTTP protocol. So in practice, what does it mean? It means that the certain machine will expose certain URL with certain keywords that are, for instance, get, post, delete, that are specific methods that will easily recall what you're planning to do. For instance, if you're doing a get, you're probably retrieving data, and if you are doing a post, you are pushing some data to the servers. Now, this is true in theoretical terms, but in practice you can even use a post to just get some data, but of course that is the role of the developer to just ensure the consistency of these methods. So to simplify, we can see REST APIs as a way to designing your backend in a way that is follows some conventions that are easy to understand and also easy to interact with. So let's move now to the next term, that is DevOps, that stands for Development Operations. And basically what we define with this are all the processes that goes hand in hand with our development, and that includes our code management, the integration, the deployment of our code in the other environments, for instance to test, staging, production, or whatever stages you have. It's actually the role of DevOps to define which stages you should implement to ensure the quality and the consistency of your code. So what DevOps covers is a lot of topics, but some of the most common terms that you will encounter are, for instance, continuous integration and continuous delivery. Continuous integration covers all the processes related to integrating code inside a repository. For instance, if you have a big team with many developers working on the same application, maybe they're working on different features or together on the same features, and in the end all their local code must be integrated in the same repository. Therefore, you need to put in place certain processes to ensure that the existing business logic are not impacted by new features. Therefore, DevOps includes as well making certain test automation that runs every time a new code is built, and therefore you can guarantee that the functionalities is not impacted. Another common practice is to have certain reviews on the new code that is pushed, so many other developers can ensure that the code is correct and not impacting all other applications. And then you have the continuous delivery that is in charge of making sure that the new packages of code is deployed continuously on the test environment and also on the production environment as soon as a new release is available. And by the way, if you're not familiar with these terms, by test environment I mean an environment that is used by developers to ensure that the functionalities are working but they're not impacting the real end user connecting to your website from anywhere in the world. While on the other side we have the production or live environment, that means the real application that ends up on the internet available for anyone to access it. So the last terminology that I want to talk about today are UI and UX. So often they're confused, but they're actually two different things. So we have the UI, that is the user interface, and that is all the graphical aspect of your application. For instance, that includes designing the size of a button, what color should it have, and if it is intuitive for the end user a certain component, and trying to find the best way to represent it on the screen. While on the other hand you have the user experience that is in charge of designing the flow that the user will follow and making sure it is as easy as possible and intuitive to understand how to interact with your website and making it easy to reach the goal that the user has on your service. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have more doubts on other terminologies like software as a service application or cloud computing, make sure to leave a comment down below and I will organize a new video explaining all these terms. So thank you again and see you in the next time.